we can say from that is that into the future we need an adequately trained, competent and confident psychiatric and intellectual disability nursing workforce. To do it and to get there, we can't continue to increase the number of graduates we're training. That isn't working anywhere in the world, and it's not going to work for us here. What we need to do is be able to create very strong clinical leadership in our services for nurses. We need to be able to create practice environments that are challenging and rewarding. We need to be able to create positive career pathways for people through things like CNS, A&P and expansion of practice, and I'll talk about that in a minute, that make this job and continue to make it as rewarding and fulfilling as it was for people like me that first went into practice. When many of us here went into nursing, we did it because we wanted to care. We couldn't imagine doing anything else, and we have to try and build practice environments and systems that create that environment for our new graduates coming out to practice. We got to balance competing demands of cost effectiveness and quality improvement with the ability to recruit and retain competent and dynamic nurses. About 2.5 years ago now, the HSE set up the Office of the Nursing Services Director, where I work. And the priority of this office and its single focus is to try and provide leadership, support excellence and build capacity in nursing and midwifery so that we can make patient care better. What we work on are things like practice development, education and training, governance, quality and standards, workforce planning, capacity building and leadership. And as you're aware, Aisling Culhane works very closely with the office on your behalf. The office works in such a way that we have a strategic role and an operational role. And one of the examples of how that worked was when we went out around the country to consult with the Nurses Act, with yourselves, to provide a coordinated response back to the department, and many other engagements that we've had with you over the last 2 years around practice development and education. We're about developing expanded scopes of practice, but doing it in some sort of a coherent way that makes it easy for nurses to actually expand practice. And the best example we have of that is the Nurse and Midwife Prescribing Project. Now, 2 years ago up in Ballyconnell, I spoke to you about nurse and midwife prescribing and encouraged as an association to look at this initiative and see if it would be of interest and of relevance to your practice. Okay? Subsequently, we have made a number of publications to help to drive this out, like the guiding framework, the support group for site coordinators, the advice on development of prescription pads, the number of networks, e-networks that we have developed, a number of patient education leaflets, the data collection system and all the rest of it. We now have 296, almost 300 people on the prescribing programme at different stages, some registered, some on the programme, some waiting registration. All around the country, 83 organisations, 63 sites in progress at the moment. What's of interest to yourselves, though, here is the mental health piece, and this is a tremendous testament to how committed many of you are to developing practice. There are 13 students, or 13 people in mental health have completed the programme to date within 2 years, and they're across those areas of the country in those particular areas of speciality. So we've got people in the psychiatry of old age, addiction studies, home care, mental health, all prescribing. That's a tremendous achievement, because that taking the leap to undertake a programme like that, taking on that level of professional responsibility is very serious, and you're to be complimented for having responded to that. Similarly, we have 15 more in mental health in training at the moment, again across those different range of services and all around the country. It is making a difference to patient care. When we look at intellectual disability, we have 6 students have completed the programme, and we have 5 students currently engaged in the programme. We have 1 registered nurse prescriber in intellectual disability. Now, look back 50 years to when we started training people in intellectual disability. And what I said earlier, what it was about custodial care. Roll it on 50 years, and we have a nurse in intellectual disability who's prescribing. That's a tremendous achievement, an absolutely tremendous achievement. Now, if 1 nurse can do it, there is no reason why 1,000 nurses cannot do it if there's a patient need. And what we need to do now over the next number of years is increase the number of people so we have a critical mass engaged in this practice. And it's expansion of practice like that that will be attractive to our young graduates and will keep them committed to the nursing profession. I think one of the biggest achievements in prescribing was the work we did with the Federation of Voluntary Bodies and Disabilities, where we developed one consistent, coordinated policy for anybody in disabilities. So anybody coming from disabilities who's involved in a service under the auspices of the Federation of Voluntary Bodies has a ready-made service policy for prescribing, and it makes it an awful lot easier to come through the practice and the programme. This is probably one of the most striking comments that was made. I'm just going to run through a number of comments that have been made from people that prescribe. This comment comes from a person with mental health difficulties, and she says, "My nurse prescribed Cogentin for me on a Saturday. This meant I didn't have to go into A&E and queue when I felt unwell. It was brilliant." Now, we talk about reform, we talk about transformation, we talk about integration, but this is it. This is real reform in our health services. It's real, live reform. There was somebody with a mental health difficulty who could access the treatment she needed at that particular point in time and get on with her life without having to go into the acute sector and wait to be prescribed for something like Cogentin. And we all know the mental health nurse that's dealing with that person every day of the week or every second week would have known exactly what to do and had the competence to do it. The other comments that have been made about it is from directors of services, the idea that having nurses with authority to prescribe, they see as a great benefit to service users, as it ensures there's fast access to treatment. One of the people on the ID side, one of the service managers, is of the opinion that the treatment is actually given by a nurse that's there with the client all the time. So when it comes to stuff like side effects and follow-up of the treatment, that they're closer to the patient than what had been happening in the past, where a patient was brought down or a client was brought down to the GP, or they waited for the service doctor to come in a month later. Another issue in relation to the ID, it was possible in this particular service to set up a Drugs and Therapeutics Committee, which brought together people from the ID sector, older person services, community pharmacists and GPs. We're trying to do that all the time, but through the prescribing, it was possible to set up that collaborative team to oversee what was happening. It's difficult to find negative comments about this particular initiative. I'll do the salesperson piece now. The next programme commenced on the 20th of April in Dublin, and there's one commenced on the 22nd of January in Cork. The next programme will start